Alright, we're going. Hi everyone, Rhett Van Scooter here with
Marion Tuttle. Hi everybody.
We joined live in person together here just for this video. Marion hasn't been in the office
In a long time.
since March. It's still March on her calendar in her office.
It is. It really is.
So welcome back to our video series here where we answer common insurance questions that we get in our office. So we just like to take this time to kind of answer these common questions because some people might not ask the questions, but they have them. You know, it's kind of like in school, like the teacher always tells you, ask the question because somebody else might be thinking of it, but they're just too afraid to ask.
It. Good.
You know,
Yeah.
So today, one of the most common questions we get is, when should you consider buying additional liability insurance? Or people might phrase it different, like, do I have enough insurance? Is my liability adequate? So kind of the question is, how do you know if your insurance is adequate, and when is the right time to buy more insurance? What do you think, Marianne?
Hopefully we'll be able to answer all your questions for you. Just to let you know, you can purchase additional liability insurance for any specific policy that has an increased exposure for a risk. So that's the first thing to know. And the rule of thumb in our agency is that on a homeowner's policy, whether we're binding in a new business or whatever, is to make sure that we keep the limit on your homeowner's policy, your liability limit on your homeowner's policy, this greater than your home value is worth. So again, if your home is in your dwelling coverage is insured for, say, $259,000, we're clearly going to make sure that your liability limit on that is greater than $259,000. We'd end up quoting you at $300,000 or even higher. That's our rule of thumb in the agency.
Exactly.
Now, you may want to increase your liability insurance on your home if any of the following things occur. One of the things would be is if you get a pool, in-ground pool or above ground pool. That's something to consider increasing your liability for, reason for it.
Exactly.
What else is there?
So if you get an animal, any type of animal, it could be a dog, it could be a horse, it could be an exotic animal, like a snake. So those are all things that create increased risk for you. So exposure for a potential lawsuit. So if someone buys a dog, no matter what the breed is, any dog can bite any person at any time. So I know when my neighbor goes out with his dog to let them go to the bathroom or to walk him down the street, my kids swarm him. So, and my 2-year-old does not know how to approach a dog. So no matter how many times we tell him, you know, go up and sniff the back of the hand, he thinks it's a live stuffed animal and he jumps on that dog and hugs him. So for a dog, luckily it's a good tempered dog, but really at any time that dog could bite my child. Exactly. And that's really for anybody. So even though it might be a good animal, you just never know if the person approaching that animal is going to do it in the right way.
Right.
So,
exactly.
And like if you get a horse, so some people might, you know, you might buy that property with some land in a barn and you say, hey, you know what, I want to get a horse, or I love horses, I have a horse. So those are what we consider in the insurance business an attractive nuisance. So it's something that is going to draw people to your property that aren't welcome on your property. So someone sees a horse, they might walk up if, you know, the fence is close to the side of the road and stick their hand over the fence to try to pet the horse, and the horse might bite their hand. So that horse drew them to your property, so we consider that an attractive nuisance.
Interesting. That's a good way to put that. Another reason is if you get a trampoline. Trampolines are a big thing nowadays, and especially with the COVID, your kids were out in the early springtime and everybody went out and bought a trampoline to give the kids something to do outside. Again, that's another reason why you may want to increase your liability, because you never know if a neighbor comes over on the trampoline and something was to happen to them, falling off or getting hurt while jumping on the trampoline. So that's another reason why you might want to consider increasing your liability on your home policy.
Yeah, or even a play set. So that was one thing we bought. We bought that pre-COVID. We're glad we did that because I put it in during kind of that first phase of COVID. One of the best things that we did, this giant play set, but man, we will have a dozen kids on that at any time. So there's more risk for it. You know, and one of those other things that we used to enjoy doing pre-COVID is entertain at our home. So if you're someone who likes to entertain at your home, have people over, you just have more foot traffic at your property, you're at increased exposure for a suit.
Another one is if you have a vacant lot. 'Tis the season for hunting. I know that a lot of friends. I was just talking to my girlfriend's son. He's an avid hunter. And again, there's posted land, but again, there's even private land. But if you've got vacant land that you own, somebody can come on there. They could be a hunter, or they could just go out for a walk or a hike and get hurt on your land. And again, if there's a divot or something on your land, that's an exposure and a risk that you could get sued for as well.
Yeah, we have some wooded lot across the main road where our track comes out of, and just recently they were putting up all no hunting signs and no trespass and everything, getting ready for the hunting season.
Yeah.
So another reason why you might want to increase your liability on your homeowner's policy is if you have children. So whether they're young or a teenage, you are responsible for their actions. So I know we had a claim in our office where a young child was riding his bike in the parking lot and rode it into the side of a car. The homeowner's policy ended up paying for the dent in that car. And then also teenagers, they might, be social and like to have a party. They might throw a party at your home where alcohol might be served. Whether you're there or not, you're being responsible for those actions. So those are all reasons why you'd want to increase the liability on your homeowner's insurance.
Now, other reasons to increase your liability on your auto insurance is almost the same thing to piggyback on as if you've got young teen drivers. That is one of the main reasons I feel that you should always have a increase your liability or be conscious of the liability. You've got a young driver out there, they're definitely inexperienced. Even though they may be taking driver's ed, they're still considered inexperienced operators, and they are a risk. So that's another reason why you might want on your auto insurance, increase your liability on that to protect them as well.
Or on your auto policy, if you have a luxury or a high performance vehicle, those vehicles pretty much kind of put a target on you where it gives the appearance that you might have assets that can be tapped into for a lawsuit. So if you have something that's higher end or high performance, you definitely want to consider increasing the liability on your policy.
Okay. And then the other thing is if you get older, I'm getting older and we've built up a lot of assets. And again, we want to be able to protect our assets that we've worked so hard for in the past. So again, your assets, especially when you're getting older, they're definitely going to be getting bigger and greater. You want to be able to protect them.
That's the plan.
Well, yeah, that is true. That is true. That is the plan.
It doesn't always work that way, but
Right.
So, and then if you have toys on your auto policy. So one of the big things now is everyone's getting a camper. So you take that camper, you park it on a campground, you're towing that trailer. You might not have experience towing a trailer while you're driving. So those are just increased hazards that are reasons to increase your liability insurance. You could have a snowmobile on your auto policy, or an ATV or a UTV. Usually when you're doing those things, they're just higher risk activities where someone can get hurt. So you want to make sure that you protect yourself. So, I mean, those are the reasons why it makes sense to increase the limit on your home and auto policy. But when does it make sense to purchase a separate policy for additional liability coverage, like an umbrella policy?
Well, one of the things that I feel that is very important is that you're looking to protect your net worth, what you're basically worth. You work very hard all your life, and even you're working hard now, and you want to be able to protect your assets. There are certain investments, like retirement investments, that would be touched, but again, the value of your home and your other assets, financial assets that you have, you want to be able to protect them as well. We really hate to see somebody lose all their assets and all their financial stability over a little claim, and to spend just a little extra money to be able to protect these assets is very important.
Yeah, it's inexpensive protection to protect yourself.
Yep.
For something that took you a lifetime to build, you don't want to lose it in a heartbeat.
Right.
For
and even if it's not a lifetime either, even if you're starting to build it up now, as you grow old and with the family and stuff, it's definitely, you want to start protecting your assets early on.
And you might be, you might not, you might be younger and not have accumulated assets yet. So it's like, well, what do I have to lose? What do I have to worry about? Well, if you talk to anybody who sells life insurance, they'll tell you, they always ask you the question, what's the most important asset that you have? And so they're waiting for you to say your home or your car or something else. It's a setup, right? The answer is your income. It's all your future earnings. So someone who is 20 years old has 40 to 45 years or more of income earning potential that they can garnish your wages in the event of a lawsuit.
Yep.
And that's not protected money.
That's correct. Yep.
So.
Yep. There's other exposures too, such as like if you volunteer. So there's a lot of charitable organizations, religious and other organizations that don't provide coverage for you, and you're volunteering your time. And they usually don't purchase the insurance for you because number one, they don't know that they need it. And also it could be very expensive.
Right, they might not be able to afford it.
Yeah.
Shoestring budgets.
Yeah. So you volunteer your time and stuff for different organizations, you are at risk. So if something was to happen that you decided, made a decision on something, and someone got hurt and there was negligence, you need to be protected for that as well.
Yeah. Now, the cost for buying an umbrella policy is obviously going to be more than just increasing the limits on your underlying policies on your auto and home insurance.
Right.
So typically on your homeowners insurance, if you were to go from $300,000 to $1 million, you're looking anywhere in the range from probably $40 to $60 a year on it in our area.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously everyone's situation will be different.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the auto, to go for, if you had, say you had the higher limits of $250,000 each occurrence and $500,000 for each accident on your auto policy for bodily injury coverage, if you took that to $1 million, that's probably going to be more. You're probably getting more at $100 increase or more to increase from there. So, but with an umbrella policy, what it does is it goes over both of those policies for it. So an umbrella policy, the range we usually kind of give people is, anywhere from $180 to $250 a year. And that's for kind of your standard 2 cars, 2 drivers, and 1 home. So if you have more exposures, being more drivers, and if they're youthful, it's more expensive. If you have more vehicles, so if you have 4 vehicles, 3 drivers, 1's a youthful, you have your primary home you live in and a seasonal home, that umbrella policy is going to cost you more than someone who just has 1 home and 2 cars. So that's kind of how it's rated on. But if you have all those exposures, it's even more reason to have an umbrella policy.
Because it's definitely a much higher risk. The more exposures, the higher the risk is as well. So the other thing is people always ask, so what is an umbrella policy? What that does, it basically provides extra liability insurance that goes above and beyond your current policy, whether it be your home, your auto, your boat. Again, think of an umbrella just going right over everything else to be able to protect you. It's actually an additional layer of security for those at risk of being sued for damages to other people's property or injury caused to others in an accident. So basically what you're doing is you're protecting yourself and your assets in case you're going to be sued.
Yeah, like we said, for around $20 a month, it's well worth it. It's well worth it to protect yourself for it. So, and Marianne kind of mentioned how it works. So, like I said, the visual, it's an umbrella. It goes over your other policies. So, if on your home you have $300,000 liability and you buy a $1 million umbrella, now you have $1.3 million of coverage for a homeowner's claim.
Correct.
And same thing on the auto. Say if you had $250,000, we'll just say you had a $500,000 combined single limit for bodily injury or property damage, to keep it simple. You put in a $1 million umbrella policy on it. Now you have $1.5 million to cover yourself for an auto insurance claim. And that goes over both policies. And actually the umbrella extends, like Marianne said, a little bit further because it might cover you for exposures that aren't covered by the underlying policy, because your typical homeowner's policy is not going to cover you for that volunteer work that you do, but the umbrella policy will. So that's one of the most important things. So it does, kick in when you have you know, your underlying coverage has been exceeded. But then also, if you don't have any underlying for it and it's a covered claim, it will step down and kick in for that claim. So, and if you're going to get an umbrella policy, we recommend that you have all of your insurance policies with the same company.
Yes.
It just makes it easier, and it makes sure that you're covered, that you're not going to have any gaps in coverage, because if you go buy a policy someplace else and they don't ask you all the questions, they don't ask if you have an umbrella policy, you might not get the adequate coverage to trigger your umbrella policy if there's a claim. So say you bought a boat and you said, hey, you know what, I went through the boat dealer, they recommended just go to Boat US to get my boat insurance. I went there, Boat US never asked me if I had an umbrella policy, and they just wrote me $50,000 combined single limit for liability coverage. So the problem is your umbrella policy will have a minimum that it requires of the underlying policy before it kicks in. So that's typically $300,000. So you could find yourself with a $250,000 gap before your umbrella policy kicks in on that boat policy. That is not something you want to have.
Exactly.
So that defeats the purpose of having an umbrella policy when you have gaps like that. So even though it might cost a little bit more to keep all your policies with one company, we highly, highly, highly recommend it. So it might, and it doesn't have to be necessarily the same company, but at least the same insurance agency. So one person is overseeing and managing all those for you.
Yeah, because sometimes you call in and say, hey, you can add a vehicle, or your child now got their license. We in turn know that you've got an umbrella policy. We will need to add that additional vehicle and or driver to the umbrella policy as well. The premium will go up because it's an additional exposure, but again, they're definitely protected in case of a loss.
Exactly. Did we miss anything? I think we covered it pretty well.
We got it all. Hopefully everybody understood what we were talking about, but I think they did. We tried to keep it simple.
That's right. And please, if you have questions, don't hesitate to comment, send us an email. We're happy to answer anybody's questions.
Yeah, for sure.
So, you know, thanks again for watching. If you have any questions that you'd like us to answer, please send them to us. We'd be happy to add them to our list of topics to discuss. We're always looking for things that are interesting to people, so we make sure that these are informative and helpful for people. So I think that's it.
All right, good job.
Good job. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.